there, it's Kevin with RogueDeckBuilder.com here with some more Commander Horizons spoilers for the 24th, Friday. There are some juicy ones in here. Yeah, I know I shouldn't call it Commander Horizons. I might get people whining at me on Twitter again about how I shouldn't be complaining, and I'm not really complaining. I actually love this set so far. I think they did this perfectly. I was worried when the Modern Horizons was spoiled that it would just turn Modern into Legacy 2.0 and put a lot of powerful cards that pushed out kind of the staples or the feel of Modern. But this set seems to be perfectly designed. They're going to be able to sell it through the Horizon Canopy mana base or the land cycle that they've done, so that's very smart. And the other chase cards right now are just kind of the casual cards or the brew around cards, which I'm absolutely a fan of. Now, that's not to say that some of these cards won't see play in Modern. There are plenty of cards that I think are powerful enough, but most of them are not just like these shoe-in type cards that we just know. It's not like a Fatal Push or an Assassin's Trophy so far has been printed. It's like, yep, that's going to go in everything. A lot of good sideboard answers, a lot of good brew around cards. Some people say this set should have been called Saffron Olive Horizons because it's all these janky, wonky, really powerful cards if they can be put in a right shell. But I mean, in a format that is riddled by humans, which is a very quick deck and a shutdown deck, a lockdown deck. Same with like Jund. And then you have Karn that if you allow them 4 turns, they're going to win. Scape Shift, same thing like that. Some of these cards have a hard time like really fitting in a format as powerful as Modern. So that's why people are calling it Commander or Casual Horizons, because these cards are amazing in those type of formats. So anyway, I think this set is so far a knock out of the park. Some people are like, well, knock out of the park is Ultimate Masters. No, I think a knock out of the park is a very well-designed set that should have a good limited environment, should have a lot of brew around cards, and should slightly or slowly impact the format. So far this has seemed like exactly what this set has done. Kudos to the designers of this. This is one of my favorite design sets so far. We'll have to see how the limited environment plays out. But yeah, the power level on these cards just seems to be right there. So let's just quit talking about the design and let's get right into the spoilers. So the first one is Unbound Flourishing. Now, Unbound Flourishing seems very, very powerful. It's a 3-mana enchantment whenever you cast a permanent with a mana cost that contains X. Double the value of X. So it's got a picture of a Hydra on here. Of course, it's going to go in the various Hydras that have converted mana cost X in it. We have one in Standard right now with the Hydroid Krasis, which would be really cool to pair with this type of card, as you're going to get a ton of value out of X. But then whenever you cast an instant or sorcery spell or activated ability with the converted mana cost X, you copy that spell, and you may choose new targets for that copy. So that gets insanely powerful too, because there are a ton of X spells. Even look at Standard like Banefire. That'd be a really, really good combo with Unbound Flourishing. So this is going to be a Commander favorite, I am certain of. And what's that? The Riku of Reflections? I think that's one that will actually want to play this. There are a couple of the teamer ones that I know for a fact they're going to want to play Unbound Flourishing with a lot of X spells in those. I think there's an X Commander already in the Gruul. But the card that comes to mind right off the bat is Nissa, Steward of Elements. This one is really, really good with the Unbound Flourishing, and that Nissa has seen play in Modern before. And this is an X spell Planeswalker that you can then double the mana. So if you turn 2 that with like a Birds of Paradise and you have 3 mana, you basically have 4 mana. With the birds, you'll have turn 2 with 2. So you have 3 mana to put towards. So come in with 4 copies, so not quite 6. You need to have it come in with 6. And as soon as you can have it come in with 6 or 7, you can untap up to 2 target lands you control. They become 5/5 creatures with flying and haste and tilter, and they're still lands. That basically brings 10 damage on board immediately. I mean, that's something you don't really have to do with Nissa either. You can just use the 0 ability at that point after the enchantment. It's definitely going to be able to hit if your loyalty is high with the Nissa, Steward of Elements. So anyway, that was just a kind of a cool little synergy that just really came to mind after I saw this card. There are so many cards that synergize with Unbound Flourishing. I'm expecting this to be a very, very popular casual card and a very popular brew around card, so perfect for that card. We have the Farmstead Gleaner. This is a 3 mana for a 2/2 and does not untap during your untap step. And you can untap it by putting a ++1 counter on the Gleaner for 2 and tap. So another little card that works kind of well with Training Grounds. This is just a filler for the limited environment. So there might be some sort of tap on tap type effects. Like if you can make this tap for 2 mana, you can create infinite combos with the Farmstead Gleaner. So there will be a lot of casual decks, like experimental Kraj decks will probably want this. I play very similar cards to this in my Commander, experimental Kraj, and I'm sure someone is be able to make some sort of wonky combo in Modern that can go infinite very, very quickly. Not quite like Pia Pala. You'd have to figure out a way how to make this tap for 2 mana. But, I mean, isn't that Grand Architect? Yeah, Grand Architect, right there. You can tap an artifact to add 2 mana to your mana pool. But you have to spend that, right? Spend that on... Let's pull up Grand Architect real quick to see exactly what the Grand Architect reads. Because this one, I know you can tap creatures for 2 mana. Tap and untap. Oh, blue creature. Spend this ability only cast artifact spells or activate abilities. Yep, there we go. There's infinite combo right off the bat with Grand Architect. So you need to turn it into blue, and then you tap on tap, 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 and then you get a infinitely big +1/+1 counter creature. Then if you have some other card that triggers off of +1/+1 counters, there you go. So there's an infinite combo with Farmstead Gleaner. Little bit janky, kind of Scarecrow. Goes in the Scarecrow Tribal. But anyway, pretty fun card. All right, so Battle Screech. Battle Screech is getting a Modern printing, and I actually do think this one is playable enough for Modern. This is a favorite in Pauper. And Pauper, a lot of the decks actually just use it as a free card. It's with Faithless Looting, so you Faithless Looting it into the graveyard, and then you can just tap 3 untap white creatures to get 2 1/1 birds, basically for free at that point. So I'm kind of liking Young Pyromancer, Burning Inquiry, Hollow One, Lingering Souls, Rally the Peasants type deck, and just a go wide strategy with like Hollow One seems pretty reasonable for Battle Screech. Like Lingering Souls and this together are very good cards because they're two basically free cards with cards like Faithless Looting and Burning Inquiry. So that's exactly where I'm seeing this one's going to fit. It also looks pretty decent in a token shell if you put something like this Smuggler's Copter. So Smuggler's Copter can throw the Battle Screech or a Lingering Souls in the graveyard. You still get a card. That's basically a free resource in your graveyard. Same thing with Rally the Peasants if that's a card you want to throw in your graveyard. So this one I do think is going to be good enough for Modern if a go-wide strategy, a tokens-based strategy is viable. In a format with Ugins and Karns, I'm not quite sure. All right, so let's go on to the next one with the Sling Gang Lieutenant. Now, this one is just insane in Commander. So it's another card that can go infinite with Nim's Death Metal. So if you have the Altar, so the Ashnod's Altar and Nim Death Metal and Sling Gang Lieutenant, you can just infinitely get Sling Lieutenants out, but it doesn't seem at that point, you need a Blood Artist effect at that point. What makes this pretty good, though, is with other goblins, you can sacrifice a goblin for target player to lose 1 life and you gain 1 life. That is an instant, or that is an activated ability that does not require tapping, so it gets around Summoning Sickness. So basically, Impact Tremors, Perforos Goblins could be a thing. But I'm thinking this is more of a commander-based deck. The Tesas are going to love this type of stuff. The Bantus. Very good limited card, too, if there's enough goblins to build around it. Tons of goblin tokens. It is off-color in black, but that's not hard these days. It's another reason why Anti's Hovel is going to continue to go up. All right, so we have the second Planeswalker spoiled. This is Ren and 6. This actually seems like a very powerful Planeswalker. It's a 2-mana Planeswalker, the second one in history. Return up to 1 target land card from your graveyard to your hand for the +1. And the -1 is deal a damage to any target. And the -7 is you get an emblem with instant sorcery cards in your graveyard have retrace. So why I like this card in Modern is I think it does a lot of very, very positive things. At worst, you get back a fetch land immediately, and you have a 4 loyalty countered Planeswalker on the battlefield. The second thing is you can shoot down Birds of Paradises and Noble Hierarchs. There are actually quite a few 1 toughness creatures in Modern. Humans has a ton of them. Again, the Hierarchs, you can still, if you're on the play, take out like a Thales Lieutenant or the champion of whatever the champion of the parish, and plenty of other decks do run those 1-drops, so that 1 damage can actually be relevant. If not, it's a fetch land per turn. This is a draw card per turn in Modern format. I think it's very, very powerful. I think that this slots perfectly in Lord Windgrace decks and into Omnath the Locust Rage decks. So this is going to be a highly sought after card in Commander, very powerful card in Commander, very good Planeswalker to them to toy around with another 2-mana Planeswalker done right, in my opinion. Next up, we have Fallen Shinobi. 5 mana for a 5/4. When it deals combat damage to a player, that player exiles the top 2 cards of their library until end of turn you may cast those cards without paying their mana cost. So really, really powerful ability if it can connect. It is a zombie, which is kind of sweet because zombie commander decks are going to want it, and it's a ninjutsu. It's a ninja. So going back to the ninja deck that came out this year, this is another perfect one for ninjutsu with all the enter the battlefield type effects. This one is a bit of a stretch, but I could start to see some sort of black-blue tempo-based strategy might be viable in Modern. So if you use stuff like Thoughtseize and Inquisition to take out their combo piece A or B, their removal, and then you have something even like Augur of Bolas or some sort of enter the battlefield effect. There's probably more powerful ones in Modern than Augur of Bolas, but if you ninjutsu back an unblocked creature, then you get a 5/4 out for 4 mana that then can cast 2 cards off the top of your opponent's library. So like an Itali effect on basically a 4-drop at this point. So Commander, very, very powerful as well. Is playable in my opinion for Modern, and it's a card that I definitely would love to brew around. I think that there is a lot of degenerate things you can do off your opponent's libraries. I mean, that against Tron, you're casting Ugins and Karns against them because until turn you may play those cards without paying their mana cost. That is huge, huge ability on this card. All right, next up we have Simba. So King of the Pride, 3 mana, 2/1. Other cats you control get +2/+1. Is this enough to spark a cat tribal? There are a lot of cats, a lot of undervalued cats. In fact, I built a cat Soul Sisters deck that actually did quite well in Modern. You have a Brumaz that spits out cat tokens. You have a lot of cat token generators that have been printed recently. You have a couple 1-drop cats that are great. You have a Johnny's Pridemate that is a cat at a 2-drop that works off of a lifelink, which a lot of the other cats provide. So possible this card could see some sort of play because +2/+1 is pretty decent. Hard to protect this card though. Yeah, I don't know. Very, very cool lord that cats get now. Of course, cat tribal for casual decks are going to love this card. We have Plague Engineer, Death Touch, 2/2, and when there's a battlefield, you choose a creature type. Creatures of the chosen type, your opponent's control get -1, -1. This one's interesting because even against like Phoenix decks, you can name, if they're in the Young Pyromancer version, you can name Elemental and shut down those. The Phoenixes then become 2/1s. I don't know if it can stick around that well, but humans, this is kind of neat too because it can take care of, at least dumb down or take care of many of the humans that come out of their decks. Same thing with like elves. There's a lot of combo pieces that are 1 toughness that this could just go slot in. Not quite sure though. There's so many other slots in Modern, but this of course is another fun brew around card. Carrier is a weird. This isn't a reprint, is it? I'm not sure if this one is, and that's why it's got the carrier. But I wonder why they didn't make this like at least a zombie or something at that point, or a horror. To give it some sort of relevant creature type. All right, so here's one I haven't looked at. This is the Hexdrinker. This is a 1 mana for a 2/1 snake. So level up is 1, and then it doesn't do anything until it is 3. It has protection from instances, and then when it has level up 8, it has protection from everything as a 6/6. So it's a good little mana dump in like a stompy-based strategy. There's Nykthos Shrine of Nyx decks that it can work in. I don't know if it's powerful enough as a 1-drop, as just a 2/1, and quite not that bad of a mana. Like the thing is, like any unused mana can be thrown into the Hexdrinker and eventually can get bigger. So yeah, I think it is viable enough for Modern, but this slot is incredibly loaded with 1-drops, even in like a green stompy deck that you'd think would want this. Again, I think the only one that would really want it is one that is going heavy on devotion with like Nykthos Shrine of Nyx. Maybe some sort of Mana Dork strategy or Utopia Sprawl strategy, possibly. But, I mean, that's a stretch at that point. Again, it's going to be a casual favorite for sure because of that protection from everything. All right, so we have Winds of Abandon. This one is kind of neat. And a 2 mana exile target creature you don't control, and so it's a sorcerer speed path to exile with overload as 6. So I actually do think this will see play in decks that want more than just 4 path to exiles. Overload is quite interesting if you can get it up high enough. Like the Martyr proc, I think, is where this deck does, or this does probably want to go in, because you do want to get up to 6 mana. Martyr proc allows you to clog the board until you reasonably can get up to that 6 mana, and they can just exile the problematic cards. Blue-white, kind of the Wall of Omens type decks might want this as well, because they can get up to that 6 manas. But, I mean, that's kind of rough for Modern with the... I mean, this feels like a Cyclonic Rift for white. Speaking of which, this is going to be very, very popular in Commander, I'm sure. Holohide Sliver. Sliver creatures you control have the loot ability, discard and draw a card, decent for this Sliver Tribal. We have the Force of Rage. If it's not your turn, you may exile a red card and create 2/3/1 red elemental creature tokens with trample and haste. They are sacrificed at beginning of your next upkeep. Too bad I didn't say your next end step. So upkeep. They're gonna, if you play it on your turn, they stick around until your next upkeep. They have haste. I don't know. So this is like another Ball of Lightning type ability, and if you need to use it as an instant speed block, sure. However, it's kind of awkward. We have plenty of these other abilities. I don't know. Still another decent little aggressive card. That instead of like Ball of Lightning being in one target, it splits it. So who knows? Who knows if this is playable or not? Cloud Shredder Sliver, 2 mana for creatures you control have flying and haste. So now you can actually drop blue. As blue, I think, was really in there for flying, and now this can give it flying. So you can go either Naya Slivers a lot easier. I don't know. It's quite easy to play 5-color Slivers right now in Modern. Goat Nap is a gain control of a creature, but if it's a goat, it gets +3/+0. So basically, if you're taking Changelings, it gets big. So here's the very divisive card right now, the Mox Tantalite. It was pre-selling for very, very high. A lot of the pros have come out and said this card is garbage. I am kind of in the middle of the road on Mox Tantalite. I don't think it's the most broken thing ever, but it is something that I think people are underestimating with cards like Electro Dominance or any sort of like search your library for an artifact card with converted mana cost whatever and put it into play. That's another way, like the Whir of Inventions type cards, if they just want to go get a mana rock, that can easily happen because this has a converted mana cost of 0. And then, yeah, other ways the Ancestral Vision decks might want it, where you're already cheating in cards like that. It's not legendary. It adds 1 mana of any color, which ramps. I don't think this card is as bad as everyone is saying it is. Suspending it on turn 1 seems okay too, because it will come into play, turn 3? And then, and then you'll be able to actually add for mana. So like decks that are looking for specifically that turn to skip a mana might want Mox Tantalite. And again, I think that this is there's a lot more brew around potential where this can be broken. I typically don't like these type of cards because they are just very, very, they lead to swingy games where they are horrible when they don't go in your favor and just absolutely busted when they do. Within Mulligan rules too, this seems a lot better than old school Mulligans where you can kind of guarantee these in your hand. Other ways to loot too is nice with Mox Tantalite, where it's like, okay, if I draw it later, I can just loot it away. So yeah, people I think are underestimating this card. I actually think this is a pretty decent one. I like it better than Mox Amber, for example. All right, Genesis. This is a reprint from Legacy. It has spawned Legacy decks in the past. It's a Commander All-Star. At the beginning of your upkeep, if it's in your graveyard, you can pay 3 mana if you do return a creature from your graveyard or hand. So this is a pretty good deck where you can, if you can get this in your graveyard, like Prime Spirit or Vanagar or Eldritch Evolution type decks that can throw it away in after you've cast it, seem kind of interesting. Or, of course, just loot-based decks that can just immediately throw this in the graveyard are kind of nice too. It might be a sideboard way to grind out with like Hollow One decks. Decent card. Feaster of Fools, 6 mana for 3/3 with Convoke and Devour 2. Seems kind of a filler card. You can convoke it into play with tokens and then eat those tokens to have a big demon, but that's just a liability in Modern. I think this is more for the limited play. Bazaar Trade Mage. This card seems pretty busted. It's a 3/4 for 3 mana, but the whole thing of it is in dredge-based strategies, you enter the battle, you draw 2 cards and discard 3 cards. Like, I could actually see this in Living End as well, because it's that perfect converted mana cost of 3, so you can't cascade into it. And it is a way to dig for 2 cards and then discard 3 cards. I don't know. That seems, card disadvantage for the card seems kind of rough in Modern, but in the right shell where you're all in to find cards in your graveyard, this card seems pretty decent. 3/4 Flying Body is pretty good too. I know they're trying to give this a payoff. That's kind of the for the card disadvantage. Typically, these cards in the past have been, 1/3s. So the 3/4 is nothing to scoff at. That's a pretty fast clock. It's evasive. It's got nice toughness to survive Lightning Bolt. Not a bad card whatsoever. We'll see. We'll have to see what degenerate things people can do in dredge-based shells and hollow one-based shells with the Bazaar Trade Mage. Pyrophobia, 2 mana, deals 3 damage to target creature. Cowards can't block this turn, so this is just a filler sorcery card for the limited environment. We got a Mother Bear. 2 mana for a 2/2, and then 5 mana to exile it from your graveyard to create 2/2 green bear creature tokens. Feels very limited to me as a pretty decent limited card at common to pick up. 5 mana to exile for 2/2s. At that point is a pretty steep cost in Modern. Ayula, Queen Among Bears, but here's the Bear Lord. Whenever another bear enters the battlefield under your control, you choose 1. You put 2+1 counters on a bear, or target bear you control fights another creature you don't control. So here's your Commander Bear that everyone's been asking about, and got the Savage Punch on the bear, and gets very, very big. There are a lot of bear tokens in going back to older sets, and a few of them printed in this set as well. Generous Gift, 3 mana for a Beast Within. Destroy target permanent controller, creates a 3/3. So they've color shifted this to white. Very interesting. I don't know. It feels like a green card to me, but color shifting it to white gives white a lot of outs now. Wow, that's pretty good, because white is typically quite good at taking care of most permanents, but this allows them to take care of all permanents at a very, very... I mean, white's pretty good at dealing with 3/3 green tokens, for example. If you're even in a Wrath deck, you destroy something and you can Wrath that away later on. All right, so the Changeling Outcast, and 1 mana for a 1/1. Changeling can't block and can't be blocked. This card is nutty in Pauper. I think it actually will be the card that spawns the Changeling Tribal. So there are 2 cards, the Gruesome Outcome, is that what it's called? No, Gruesome, where you can return 2 zombies from your graveyard to hand, as well as the Pirate one, where you can return up to 2 pirates from your graveyard to hand. You can make a Changeling deck now that is just works completely off of hitting, like, even in like a fairies based deck, this counts as a fairy. So now Pestermite, or the pepper something, where you can do -1/-1 to a creature and draw a card if you control a fairy. Like, there's a lot of good things that this can be worked off of, this being a shapeshifter, and it has the added ability of not being blocked, which is just icing on the cake. You can hook this up with enchantments or equipments. But again, I'm looking at this Pauper because Changeling is very, very close to being viable, and what it really needed is another Changeling 1-drop in particularly black is where they'd want it. And so having a 1-drop black Changeling card, I think, will spawn a Changeling deck in Pauper. Splicer's Skill seems a bit of just a limited card, a 3/3, create a 3/3 colorless golem, and then you can splice it on an instant or sorcery spell. So it is on curve. You get a 3/3 for 3 mana. It doesn't have first strike, though. I guess golems didn't. I guess it was the Blade Splicer was giving it. And then later on, you can start splicing this on instant or sorceries. So again, this is an interesting card to possibly be in. I could actually see this spawning some sort of control-based shell. All of your ops and sleight of hands then become added additional 4 mana to create a 3/3. And so in like a blue-white control, I could see one of these being the finisher. I mean, I know it's a stretch. I know that's a stretch, but yeah, it seems like it's reasonable for a free spell from your hand just to continue to create 3/3s. So I guess I shouldn't underestimate the Splicer's Skill. Umezawa's Charm, kind of filler. Creature gets +2/+2, or creature gets -1/-1, or gain 2 life. So it's just kind of a toolbox for limited, where you can justify putting a pump spell or removal spell and a gain life spell in the main. Glacial Revelation, 3 mana to reveal the top 6 cards of your library and put any number of snow permanent cards from among them into your hand. Kind of neat if you're playing with snow lands and enough permanents. Yeah, I'd like to see more things to brew around this. We'll have to wait and see the snow permanents that come out. Ravenous Giant is a filler, 5/5 for 4. Deals a damage to you on your upkeep. We have Altar of Dimension that was reprinted. This is sacrifice a creature and they mill 2. Pretty cool reprint that now is Modern legal. I don't know where this would see play in Modern. Sidisi Undead, or Sidisi Tyrant of the Brood has a cool combo with this where you can mill yourself and just create 2/2s, so maybe a Laboratory Maniac in that, but again, that's a stretch. We have the Ayula's Influence. You discard a land card and create a 2/2 green bear. So here's your bear generator. This is a nice little Life from the Loam synergy, and or the discard a land. Where you discard a land and do 2 damage. It goes with that, so where you can then get a bunch of lands back with like Splendid Reclamation. We have Crucible of Worlds. This is the just better than Zombie Infestation, probably. It is 3 mana versus 2, though. So a Treasure Hunt deck could be spawned by creating a bunch of 2/2 green bear creature tokens by discarding lands. So yeah, Treasure Hunt in this. A lot of things can be synergized with the influence. Got 3 mana. I guess you shouldn't underestimate that, too. That's a lot of devotion to be drawn up with the Ayula's Influence. And again, anything that draws a ton of lands, we just got one printed out of War of the Spark, the Nissa's Triumph, where you just go get 2 forests for 2 mana. Seems pretty good with these type of cards. All right, so I think we got to, where did we get to? The last spoiler to the Unicorn. So let's look up this card here is the Worthy Knight. You can tap target creature, and so that if a creature, activate this ability only if a creature enters the battlefield this turn. So it's a way to tap down a creature if your opponent casts a creature pre-main phase. Interesting. I don't know. Kind of definitely a filler card. And then you can tap something if something entered on your side to tap a blocker potentially. Pretty filler. All right, so let's go back to Sisay, Weatherlight Captain. So this one gets a +1/+1 for each color among other legendary permanents you control. So it can get quite big, and then search your library for a legendary permanent with converted mana cost less than the power. Put that card on the battlefield. So a tutor that can then go get other legendary permanents. Of course, this is eligible as a 5-color commander. So another commander card, not playable in Modern in my opinion. I don't know. I'm sure Seth will try to brew around this card and make it work. There could be some pretty crazy stuff that you can assemble with legendary permanents. Squirrel Nest is now legal in Modern. So this can create a lot of infinite tokens with Squirrel Nest with any way to untap lands. Create 1/1 green squirrel creature token, and then yeah, if you have like Intruder Alarm and then Arbor Elf, that's infinite because then you can untap, Arbor Elf can untap the land and create another one, untap, untap, untap. Then you need something like Perforos to win the game. We have the Frostwalk Bastion, which is a 2/3 when it becomes animated for 1 and a snow mana. And it deals combat damage to creature. You tap that creature and it doesn't untap. So nice little snow land for add basically a colorist to your mana pool and have a way to create a construct. The Thundering Djinn. Whenever the Djinn attacks, it deals damage to any target equal to the number of cards you draw on this turn. Filler card for sure. Good Fortune Unicorn, a 3 mana for a 2/2. Whenever another creature enters the battlefield under your control, you put a +1/+1 counter on that creature. So nifty little ability, especially with cards that work off +1/+1 counters. I'm sure there's a lot of combos with this card that can do some pretty wonky stuff. What's the one where it comes into whenever you get a +1/+1 counter on a creature? Yeah, there's got to be some crazy stuff that can be done with Good Fortune Unicorn. Etchings of the Chosen. I think we got to this where, yeah, we did get to this one. So that's where I got to with the spoilers. These are some pretty neat little spoilers that have been spoiled in this past couple days. Again, I think this set's perfect. It's got a lot of brew around cards. It's got a lot of commander cards that are going to sell the set. It's got the land base that's going to sell the set. I don't see anything that just like completely comes out of left field that's going to like destroy Modern or really mess things up. A lot of cool brew around cards. Yeah, pretty good format. Anyway, let me know what you think in the comment section below, especially these 2 cards, the Renin 6 and the Mox Tantalize. My analysis of both these cards is off base. I like both of these a lot. I am definitely not a naysayer on these 2. Anyway, this is Kevin with Rogue Deck Builder. Thanks for watching.